Welcome back! I hope you're continuing to discover new things about yourself. Remember, it's a journey, not a race. Let's check in first. Is energy shifting within you? Have you been able to connect with parts of yourself or emotions you didn't allow to be seen before? Maybe you're reaching out to energy healers or therapists to help you through some of the things you're discovering, and that's wonderful. Remember, you're not alone on your journey. There are always people willing to help. Give yourself and them the gift of asking for help. This module is about changing your story. In every situation in life, there are only two responses to the challenge: fear or love, the victim or the creator. This happens to me, or this is happening for me. Negative self-talk or a pessimistic view of life creates more of what you don't want. Have you ever noticed that if you buy a new car, suddenly you see that type of car all over the place? That's because your brain is now paying attention to what you say is important. If you are constantly giving your attention to your coworker who likes to complain about their marriage, then your brain will start looking for problems within other relationships, including yours. Think about this and notice it. Where we put our attention is what life shows us. So how does that relate to writing, you ask? We are natural storytellers. And every time we tell a story, we can tell it from a place of victimhood or empowerment. Haven't you noticed before that two people can have the same events happen to them, but one says it was the worst day of their life, and the other one barely remembers that it happened, or maybe they saw something positive in it? It's all in the way you perceive the events and tell the story. Your perception of an event can change over time, and practice and mindfulness is the key. One of the ways to help change your perception is by changing the way you recall the story. Is there a story that you hate to tell because when you say it, it brings up uncomfortable feelings or emotions? Do you find yourself telling a story that gets others to feel sorry for you? Do you tell a story to justify the way you are or things you've done? Most of us do. So, how can you tell that same story from a place of empowerment and not disempowerment? I'll give you an example from my own life. When a 10-year relationship of mine ended, I was suddenly without a car. Now, I work from home 75% of the time and only really needed a car maybe 10% of the time. That percentage didn't justify me struggling financially with the car payment and everything associated with it. So I chose not to get a car. The goal was to save for a car and eventually buy one when I really needed it and could afford it. Besides, I'd always wanted to live a car-free life anyway, and my current situation was perfect for it. The universe had really set me up in the best possible way, which is usually what happens when we get out of the way and let the universe guide us, right? But I found myself walking to the grocery store and telling the checker that, oh, I don't have a car. I talk to people at work and say, oh, I don't have a car. I started to notice this feeling that came up when I said that about myself. So I wrote about it. I was feeling sorry for myself. I'd been left without a car, and it was salt in the wound that was already there. You see, I depended on someone for so much, including a car, and it was gone. The car was a reminder of my prior dependency and the situation I was currently in. Now, I realize tons of people don't have cars, But it was new for me because even when I barely drove before, I still had access to a car. But without that relationship, that access had been taken away. So when I realized this was going on in myself and I wrote about it, I asked myself, how could I change the way I was telling my story? How could I change my story in such a way that would empower my decision and take away that self-pity that I felt? Finally, I determined that I would say, I'm choosing to live a car-free life, which wasn't a lie and felt more empowering than saying, I don't have a car. Can you notice the difference? I certainly did. And after using that phrase a few times, it morphed into, I have a car-free lifestyle. And I said it with a smile, and it was met with curious questions and envy from those I spoke to. It was no time before my attitude changed about my situation. I felt smart and financially responsible instead of looking for pity. So, what's your story? Maybe you have several, but recall one to work with through the exercises. Choose one you have to tell, and when you do, you feel drained or not so good about yourself. Pause the video if you need time to think about your story. It's time to write. When you have the story in mind, first write it out like you usually tell it, and then read it. Pause the video to allow you time to do this. After you've written your story, reflect on how you feel. Do you feel disempowered? Do you feel sorry for yourself or judged? Are you justifying a link to your behavior? Write out your feelings. Pause the video if needed. Now, can you write about that situation, your story, from a position of empowerment? Use different words. Change can't to can. Empower yourself. Here's an example. A disempowered statement. I'm working at a job that I don't like and it's boring. An empowered statement. My job is easy and I'm grateful because when I leave work, I have the energy to put into the things that really matter to me. Can you hear the difference? Okay, time to rewrite your story. If you look at life through the lens that every experience is here to teach you or benefit you in some way, can you look back on that experience, your story, from a bigger perspective? What possible strength came out of that experience? What lesson did you learn that has served you in your life since then? Is that lesson still serving you, or is it holding you back? Can you write your experience in a way that propels you forward instead of holding you back? Instead of looking at the experience that created something you couldn't do, what door or opening did it possibly give you that you could never see until now? Consider the words you're choosing. This may take some time, so don't try to rush yourself. Maybe you need to meditate and come back to it. Often I find that the answers come to me when I'm relaxed. Repeat this process with any story that makes you feel bad or less than. Pay attention to the words you use to describe yourself and the situation. When you have your empowered story, say it out loud. Say it with intention and pride. Write about how it makes you feel to use the new story. Remember to tell your new story the next time the opportunity is presented and notice how you feel in that moment. and write about it. Work with your stories and empower yourself. Continue to write daily, using the tools you've learned so far. Celebrate your wins and move the energy by moving your body. Give it a week before moving on to module number 4. Always be kind to yourself. I am so proud of you. You are truly amazing.